not
Okay.
only me.
Okay, so I was just saying that we were talking about Moshe and his criticism of the way the Talmud scholars were studying the Torah, and I would say in general the way Judaism was that it. I mean, everything's okay. Everything they might be doing is okay, but the question is not only how they're doing it, but very much why they're doing it. And for him, it's clear. It's for one reason. It's for the Shekhinah. It's all about the Shekhinah. As we've said many times, if you're posek halacha, which literally means cutting up the law. So for him, what you're doing is you're cutting material to create a beautiful dress for the Shekhinah. Okay, and that's where your mindset, that's where your consciousness needs to be. And then some Saba, some old man came along and turned it on Moshe and said to Moshe, you know, okay, everything you say is amazing, agree with everything, but it's about you. It's really about you and your very, very complex relationship with the Shekhinah. And we saw very, very, I would say not L'Shem Shamayim, but Lishma, which means literally for her name. So just commenting on what I saw Michael wrote. So the last thing that we read was, it was talking about the Torah and as an ocean, as a sea. And basically what was being said to Moshe is, when you struck that rock, when you smote the rock, instead of speaking to it, what happened was the water came out drip by drip, drop by drop, rather than being an ocean, rather than being a river. And that's where you really messed it up. That's where you really messed it up, because the Torah should be an ocean. And of course, ocean is also the mother. Ocean is the mother. That's the Shekhinah. So the Torah, someone asked at the beginning of this series, like, so who is Shekhinah? How do we imagine Shekhinah? And I said in these texts, I think it's like basically sort of three answers, I would say. One is the Torah. Another one is Israel, the people of Israel. But the main one is her. It's talking about everything or all of the above in the feminine, and realizing her presence. So as I said, the ocean is the Shekhinah, and so the story of Moshe's connection to the Torah is the story of his connection to the Shekhinah. And again, he experiences her as drips and drops, not as a river, not as an ocean. And that's where he needs to develop over history, so that in the final redemption, in the end of days, the Torah is like an ocean. And that's basically the last thing that we had learned, and we're going to pick up from there. I think the text is from a different place. I think it's from Tikkunei Zohar, but it's going to work with similar themes. Okay, this is where we were before. Let me just find this. Okay. Yes.
Rob, this is the third file of
Yeah, this is in the third file. I'm in file 3, page 4. Hopefully we're going to make it to file 4 this evening. Okay, so this is from Tikkunei Zohar. Can't remember offhand what number tikkun it is. And he says, Uvigin da, and because of this, whatever, Karoza Kariz, so the caller, the herald, proclaims, Kama Giborim, how many warriors, Kama Mariturisin, how many shield masters, Itkanshu Beveit Midrasha, have gathered in the Beit Midrash, in the house of study, La'agacha Karava in Chivya Begina, to fight the war with the serpent on her behalf, the war with the snake. Okay, so how many warriors and heroes have come to the Beit Midrash to conduct the war with the snake on her behalf? Because the snake is obviously, like in the story of the Garden of Eden. So the snake here, the archetypal snake, is the one who's going to take Shekhinah and take her away from her beloved. In that sense, Moshe, and Moshe, we'll get into this more, has quite a story with the snake. But we'll talk, this will be what we'll get into later. So the snake is the threat on Shekhinah. And so, again, we see that one of the jobs, one of the roles of the people who come to Beit Midrash is to make war with the snake on Shekhinah's behalf. V'kama tirisinit avidu psakot begina debarta lemalka. And how many shields have been made into piskei halacha, halachic rulings, for her, for the daughter of the king. Vayifen cho v'cho, but Moshe came and he turned this way and that. Vayarein ish, and he sees, really, nobody's home. Moshe comes and sees all of them and sees no person is really here. What does that mean? Let behon tekatel lechivya. There was no one here who can kill the snake. Ad diete ahudit marbe, until will come he about who it was said, vayifen cho v'cho, he turned here and there, vayachet hamitzri, and he smote the Egyptian. The Egyptian is the snake. Moshe is ultimately the only one who knows how to kill the snake. Uviginda, and because of this itmar, it says in one of the blessings of Yaakov, so he says, Ad ki yavo Shiloh velo yikatamim, until Shiloh comes and nations will assemble, will congregate to him. So Shiloh is often thought of, who is this Shiloh that will come and the nations will congregate around him. So he's often thought of as the Mashiach, okay? But Tikkunei Zohar says Shiloh, Moshe, the gematria, numerical value of Shiloh is Moshe. So when he's saying, Aki avo Shiloh, until Moshe comes, because remember that for Tikkunei Zohar, Mashiach is Moshe, the Redeemer is Moshe, because he has to set right what he got wrong the last time around with his giving of the Torah. So Shiloh is Moshe, but he's reading it now differently. He's reading it not as Shiloh, ela Shelah, meaning that's the Hebrew word for her. Hers, Shiloh is his, Shelah is hers. So Moshe, gematria Shiloh, because he is hers. He is the Shekhinah's man. He has a lot to go through in his complex relationship with her, but ultimately he is hers. Di'ihi morasha dilei. She is his inheritance, but it's not really inheritance. This is here when he's saying this, Morasha, he's basing himself on a midrash. The midrash says on the verse, Torah tzivalanu Moshe, Morasha kihilat Yaakov, Moshe commanded us the Torah. It is an inheritance for the congregation of Jacob. So the midrash says, Al tikrei Morasha, do not read inheritance, Morasha, ela me'urasa. Me'urasa from the word erusin means betroth. Read betroth. Shahatorah me'ureset hi Yisrael, because the Torah is engaged, is betrothed to Israel. So Tikkunei Zohar, it's the Torah, not exactly the Torah, is married to Israel, but actually she is the betrothed of Moshe, Shelah. She is his morasha, his mureset, his betrothed. Uveginda beginei itmarbe. Because of this, it says regarding Moshe, ad ki yavo Shiloh, until Shiloh comes. Dila is Aramaic for Shelah. Hers vadai, exactly. Ihu, it is only him, Moshe, her betrothed, katil lechivya, who can kill the snake. Okay? V'katil lechivya, and he needs to kill the snake. V'chele, and the snake's strength, power, is biyama uviabeshto verakia. The snake has power in the sea, on dry land, and in the heavens. V'kama mari kuravin, and how many battle masters agachu ime krava al yama were doing the war of the, this is called the war of the snake, krava dechivya, the war of the snake. So how many battle masters were fighting the snake on the seas, on the high seas? Kamadit Mar, as it says, Sham Oniyot Yahalechun. There in the ocean, on the sea, the ships will go. The ships sail on the sea. On what sea? So Tikkun Zohar says, Biyama Deoraita, in the sea of the Torah. Okay, so there's actually, when he says there's people who are fighting the snake in the sea, so these people, the sea is the sea of the Torah. So the occupation or preoccupation with the Torah, ideally, is part of fighting the snake on behalf of the Shekhinah. So he says, what are the ships that's sailing on the sea? Di'inun, beautiful, Di'inun oniyot. I just had an interesting idea. Oniyot, yeah. Einin demistaklin beoraita. Ships are the eyes that are looking in the Torah. The eyes that are looking in the Torah. Ships. Because oniyot is like einin, even though this is an aleph, this is an ayin, just realize it. So the word for ships is sort of similar to the word for eyes. So anyway, the image is what's important here. He's seeing the ships as the eyes of the people studying Torah. V'kama oniyot minahu itabru v'naflu biyama. And so many of those ships were broken and fell into the sea. Ad diete morashadila. Until her beloved comes, her betrothed. V'kara yama deoraita. And he tears apart the sea of the Torah. In other words, in the first redemption from Egypt, he split or tore, we call it Kriyat Yamsuf, he split or tore the Red Sea. But in the future redemption, the Redeemer Moshe this time will split the sea of the Torah. V'sus v'rochvo rama vayam, and the horse and its rider he throws into the sea. Who is the horse and his rider? Di'ihu chivya uvad zuge. That's the snake, the serpent, and his mate, otherwise known as Samael and Lilith. Di'ihu susya dile, and she is his horse. V'ihu avar aladi Israel de la tavinba, and he is capable of taking Israel through the sea of the Torah this time, so that they don't drown in it. He opens up the sea of the Torah so that Israel will not drown in it. This is what it says. The children of Israel went in the dry land in the sea. Bekadmita, the first time around, when it was the Yam Suf, the Red Sea, the Reed Sea, after the Exodus from Egypt, Bekadmita, the first time around, Biyama Bahu Chomer. The sea was a material sea, a physical material sea. Bepukana Batraita, in the last redemption, Kula Biyama Deoraita. It's all about the sea of the Torah. It's not a physical sea anymore like the first time around. This time, the whole story is about the sea of the Torah. Matedile, Moshe's staff, Dekara Beyama, that he used to split, to tear the sea. Now, what is it? Da kolmus. It is the pen. It is the writer's pen. In the final redemption, Moshe's staff has been transformed into the writer's pen. And that is how one crosses the sea of the Torah. This time, it's about writing. Begin, Da'alei Idgalia Zero Adonai, because on this pen, is revealed the arm of God. In other words, when one writes, the arm of God is writing within you. Dietmar Bey, as it says regarding the arm of God, Uzra Havaya, and the arm of God, Al-Mi Nigleta. On who is it revealed? In Yeshayahu, in Isaiah, it's a question. On who is the arm of God revealed? But he's reading it, that Uzra Adonai Al-Mi Nigleta, I think he's reading me as me turned around as Yam. The arm of God is revealed on the Yam, on the sea, because the arm of God is the writer's arm. Okay? That is this piece. I want to do a little more before I open it up so we can have the whole picture here. Let me just do the next one. Okay. So, so what is this writing about? What is he imagining? Who is writing? What is being written? Va'od, so this is, now we're back in another place in Tikkunim Chadashim. I explained what that is in the first class, so we're back there, also from the Tikkunei Zohar literature. Va'od, v'hamaskilim yazhiru. So in this part of Tikkunim Chadashim, so it's taking the verse, v'hamaskilim yazhiru, Zohar Harakia, our favorite famous Zohar verse, that the enlightened will shine like the heavens shine. And the word for shine is Zohar. And it's both a verb, like Zohar, the shine or the radiance of the heaven, and it's also a verb, they will shine. V'hamaskilim yazhiru. So this is a big Zohar pasuk. This is all about, like, what is the Zohar about? Because it makes the enlightened shine. And in this particular place in Tikkunim Chadashim, in this book, so he's doing a few different takes on this verse of Hamaskilim Yazhiru. So he says, Ve'od, another interpretation of the Hamaskilim Yazhiru, the enlightened will shine. So who are they? Ilein Samach Ribo Mari Matnitin Dile'ela. They are the 600,000 masters of the Mishnah above the Ilain, and they are also Samach Ribo Mari Matnitin Diletata. They are the 600,000 masters of the Mishnah below. The Ilain, Samach, and please note the use here of the number 600,000. That's like the number of Israelites who came out of Egypt, were 600,000 about, and also in there's also especially in the Rihanna Kabbalah, but there's earlier sources for it. The 600,000 are the soul roots. There's 600,000 different soul roots in Israel, and each and every one of us belongs to a family of one of those 600,000 soul roots. Okay, so his use here of the word, of the number 600,000, means basically all of Israel. So all of the masters of the Mishnah above, that is, the ones in the heaven, and all of the masters, the 600,000s below. The Ilain Samach Ribo de Malachin, and also the 600,000 angels. The Ilain Samach Ribo de Kochvaya, and also those 600,000 stars. Kulhu yazhiru, they're all going to shine. Kulam yazhiru, hahu deitmar be pnei Moshe kifnei chama. They're all going to shine with the one about who it was said, the face of Moshe is like the face of the sun. So he's shining also. We know it also from elsewhere in the Torah. Moshe is also shining. So everyone is shining in this vision with Moshe. Kulhu yazhiru, they're all going to shine b'chibur ada, through this composition. In other words, through the Zohar. Be, in it, yazhiru b'milulei. There are some who are going to shine through talking Zohar. Kulhu, and they're all of them yazhiru b'ktivatei. They will all be shining through writing it. So this is super important, because this is not written in the Zohar. You have to understand that the book Zohar, that we know as the Zohar, appeared before Tikkunei Zohar. Who wrote the Zohar, we know, is from the time of Rabbi Shimon. I don't know if it's from the time, but it is a transmission of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. That it appeared in the 13th century. Tikkunei Zohar appeared in the 14th century. Tikkunei Zohar now is talking about, when he's talking about the Zohar, he's saying, some people talk Zohar and some people write Zohar, but you have to be doing Zohar in order to shine. Okay? So he is not the Zohar. He is not talking about the book Zohar. He wrote a book called Tikkunei Zohar, which is totally whoever this is, or, whatever person or prophet or group of prophets or divine whatever the book Tikkunei Zohar is, whoever it is not right. It's very different than the Zohar, both in content and both in style, okay? Still, he calls it Zohar. So, and here, it's amazing, this piece. This is an invitation, basically, to everyone to write Zohar. And now we understand his answer to the question that we asked, what is this whole thing about in the final redemption? So the staff of Moshe has become the writer's pen. What is that about? In his way of telling it, it's about everybody becoming Zoharic, everybody writing, thinking, and seeing in a Zoharic fashion. And as he says, some will speak it, everyone should be writing it. Let's just go on. I want to finish this piece before opening it up. So he says, so Yazhiru b'miluleh, there are some that will shine through speaking it, Kulu Yazhiru b'chtivate, everyone will shine through writing it. Bahai Sifra, that in that book, Kizor Arakia, like that book is like the shining of the sky. Va'al Shmei Itkare Sefer Azor b'diuk Amuda de'emtzaita. And for this, it's called the book of, because of this, it's called the book of Zohar, in the image of the central pillar. I'll explain that in a moment, but what he's saying here is that the reason the book is called Zohar, it's because of the Zohar, the shine, the celestial shine that it radiates, okay? So you can also, if your book is radiating, reflecting the celestial light here, the celestial shine and light, the Zohar, it's also Zohar. That's the thing. But now he's saying, Va'al Shmei Yitkre Sefer Zohar, that Sefer Zohar is named for Moshe. Okay? Di'ihu Sefer Zohar Dilei, it's his Zohar, that is his book of Zohar, Mi'ima Yila'ah, from supernal mother, Di'ihu Zohar, because he is, or I think actually she is, it should be Di'ihi, Zohar. The light itself that the Zohar reflects is Ima, the supernal mother. And Moshe, of course, we know with his whole story with the Shekhinah. So of course, Moshe is the one who transmits the Torah because she's his betrothed, she is his beloved. So we connect in that sense to Moshe. It's Sefer HaZohar, it's Moshe's book in that sense because we need to connect to the Moshe archetype and also in order to write, speak, and think Zoharic. Di'ihi Zohar, she is Zohar. Uva, and because of her, Ukmu Rabbanan, Chazal said, Ezeu Chacham emivin davar mitoch davar. Who is wise? One who understands, mevin bina, mother. One who understands something from something else. V'ihu Zohar, and this is the radiance, Dinahara belev deraya mehemna. This is the Zohar, this is the radiance of that shone in the heart of the faithful shepherd, that is Moshe. It is the Zohar that shined in Moshe's heart, okay? That is what Zohar is about. So what we call, the book that we call Zohar is basically called Zohar because it connected to that place. But having said that, it's an open invitation to write Zohar. Because if you connect to that place to Zohar, and that's Moshe's giving of the Torah, then you write Zohar. And that's basically what he's saying, because what he said, that the Zohar is Moshe's book, is ridiculous, because it's Rashbi, it's Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. I mean, Moshe is interpreted and talked about a lot in the Zohar. But there's even a place where, in the Zohar where Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he says, Moshe, he did very well, but he doesn't say it himself. The Zohar says regarding Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that he's greater than Moshe. Why? Because Moshe's face shined, and here I'm connecting it as I say it to this whole piece here about the Zohar, about the shine. So Moshe's face shined, velo yada ki karan or panav. But Moshe did not know that his face was shining, okay? But Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the main character in the Zohar, the hero of the Zohar, he knew. His face shined, and he knew that his face shined. So in that sense, he was greater than Moshe, because Moshe was not conscious of it. Rashbi was. But here he says, so the Zohar is the book of Rashbi, of Shimon Bar Yochai. But here the Tikkunei says, no, Mapitom, it's Moshe's book. The Zohar is Moshe's book. And the Zohar that we know as Zohar with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai as the hero is the greatest book in the world because it's written from that Zohar, from that shine, from that radiance that is connected to the supernal mother that rests in the heart of the faithful shepherd, that is to say, Moshe. And I want to complete this piece of our learning with a beautiful, beautiful prayer from Tikkunei Zohar, from this, it's Tikkunim Chadashim, that comes right after this. And I sent it to my friend Art Green, Rabbi Art Green. I'm sure some of you know him, And so Art translated it into English. So I'm going to read, with your permission, the Aramaic, and then his Hebrew translation, his English translation. Okay, so let me get it on the screen, and then I'll open it up if anyone would like to say something or ask something. Okay, so Patach v'amar, he opened up and said, I don't want to translate it. I'm just going to read it, and then in Aramaic, and then in English. I'm not sure who the speaker is. I don't remember offhand. So Patach v'amar, whoever it is, opened up and said, Patach v'amar, Ribon Almin, Yehei Ra'avad Ilach la'achlala ila'in v'tata'in b'sifrada, uleishtakachna kol chad v'chad bei, ben bichtiva ben bedibura, b'chela dishmach yudhe vavhe, uv'chol havyan denaharan mine, uv'chol shemahan v'kinuyim dilei, dechulhu yazhiru mine, Hachi Yehon Kulhon Ilain V'Tata'in Di'id Karun Bahai Chibura Zehirin Mishmach Umehavyan Dilei Kezora Der Nahir Barakia V'Hav Reshu L'chol Man De'adkir B'Sifra Da B'Chela Dishmach Lizdamna Miyad Be Keheref Ayin L'Gala'a Be Kol Chad V'Chad Milin Yakirin V'Razin Genizin Kamesh Shechinta Di'ihi Yechida Begaluta Lanhara Mishmach Bahai Chibura Ulitchabra Imach Bahai Chibura Litkashra Be Legabach Bechama Kishutin Lekayem Be Oba Uritiha Liskor Brit Olam. So he opened and said, Master of the worlds, may it be your will that those above and those below be joined together through this book. May each one of them be present within it, whether through the written or the spoken word. May this come about by means of your name Yud-He-Vav-He, through all beings that are enlightened by it, and by means of every name or way of calling that shines forth from it. May all those above and below who are mentioned in this book shine brightly through your name, as brightly as the light of the sky. May by the power of your name, grant permission to everyone mentioned in this book to find revealed within it, in the blink of an eye, precious hidden secrets of Shekhinah, she who is alone in exile. May she shine forth from your name through this book, in Chibura, book, and be joined, Chabara, like Chavura, with you through it, linked to you by many adornments. Thus will be fulfilled the verse, I will see her and recall the covenant eternal. Okay, so basically this is a prayer, for Zohar writers. What else can I say? Anybody want to say anything or ask anything? David?
Morning and afternoon and evening. So getting back to it's the discussion with Moshe and the snake and the relationship with Moshe and snake, looking left and right, going back. It's so interesting to me how you have sort of like the revealed statements which we get in Chumash, that it tells us in the story, these things that we're all very, very familiar with, we who may not have delved so deeply into the Zohar, the Tikkunei part of it. Then you have like it's like in that ocean welling up, the Tikkunei and Hadashim Zohar gives so much context to all of this. And then what came to my mind so strongly when you talked about, because it's at that moment with Moshe's relationship with snake, and then later in the text of Chumash we have when Moshe is being reunited with his family, and Yitro, his father-in-law, is bringing his wife and babies or children's young sons, and there's this wild moment where Moshe apparently, or Moshe or Gershon is somebody, it seems like Moshe is swallowed by a snake up to his neck until, because his son apparently does not have a brit milah, and it's so visceral, and it's the snake. There's like no ambiguity. So I'm just interested to hear about some connectivity between Moshe and the literal and the tikkun snake here.
You know, if you had looked at the files that I sent, you might have noticed that the next file we're going to learn, if people like you don't ask me too many questions, but so the next file we're going to do is called The Serpent on the Stone, and it's all about Moshe's relationship with the snake. The snake is so central to Moshe's story, and it's amazing what you said about with Sipporah and the snake, because he's sort of in this piece that we'll be learning in the fourth file. He goes through a lot of Moshe's encounters with snakes, because don't forget, when he threw his staff on the ground, it turns into a snake. And don't forget, one of the times the people challenged him, and then there was a plague, and everybody was dying. So then God tells him to make a copper snake, and that brings healing, okay? So Moshe has a lot of stories with the snake. And I'll talk a lot more about it. But what's amazing is they don't mention what you said. They don't, in this it didn't go through when it's talking Moshe's encounters with the snake. It didn't mention that one. And so I'm going to look. It's brilliant what you said. I want to look and see if anybody made the connection, because that's part of it. That's certainly part of it. And the fact that Sipporah, his wife, like Moshe with his troubled relation with the Shekhinah, with what happened with the women that he was actually with in the physical plane, and here she becomes, it's all so complicated. So thank you, amazing. Ken?
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to mention the copper snake, but I also want to say that it seems to me that the author of the Tikkunei Zillah, or the Tikkunim Chadashim, is saying that by virtue of us either speaking Zohar or writing Zohar, that the author or these authors believe that we have the reshut, the permission to engage in progressive revelation of Torah, or Zohar, to be more precise.
Absolutely. Although I want to say, not necessarily what we might imagine as progressive is what Tikkunei Zohar might have imagined as progressive, but, that's okay. You'll have to deal with that. But yes, absolutely. The only thing I would also say additionally is he does want us to write specifically Zohar. I don't think he's talking about any sort of writing. It's like the Torah basically, but it's like Zohar Torah. And I think that when he says Zohar Torah, he means very much like David was saying before, that turning the drops into the sea, like taking the Torah and making it so rich and so like we do in so many different directions. But he specifically wants it to be about not any way of talking about the Torah, specifically relating it or putting it within Shekhinah context. Okay, Michael, you want to say something?
No, you just answered it. Thank you.
That's good.
It's making Zohar generic, just as we made Torah generic.
Exactly. That's what he does, and it's really amazing. And in this prayer for Zohar writers. And again, it doesn't mean copying the style of the Zohar, because he didn't do that. He didn't I've seen people do that sometimes. They try to write in the style of the Zohar. Tikkunei Zohar did not copy the style of the Zohar. He wrote in Aramaic, sure enough, but other than that, it's very different. So it doesn't mean that we're supposed to copy him either. But there's some connection here that for him is doing Zoharic, whatever it might be.
Okay. I bet his name was Moshe.
It's very interesting you say that.
ממשה למשה לא היה כמו משה.
Okay, so you might not be surprised to hear that the academic researchers of Tikkunei Zohar, they're stumped. They don't know who wrote it, but they're sure his name was Moshe. So no doubt. Okay, so let me do the last little piece. Wait, so Rachel, did you want to say something?
Hi everyone. I just have a comment, a historical comment. I recently gave a lecture on Nathan of Gaza's Drusha Taninim, and there is a passage, and there is a passage where...
One second, Rachel, let me just clarify for those who might not know. Nathan of Gaza, he is the prophet of Shabtai Tzvi and a very, very great Kabbalist in his own right. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
So exactly, as the prophet of Shabtai Tzvi, in a passage of Drusha Taninim, he uses this metaphor of Moshe and his wand to allude to the incomplete redemption. He says that Shabtai Tzvi is he's like Moshe, but Moshe's wand was thin, hamate shelo dal, ve'hamevin yavin, but that Melech HaMashiach...
Okay, sorry for laughing. I don't know.
But it's Nathan of Gaza's subtle way of historically explaining why redemption hasn't been completed yet, but that Melech HaMashiach, he will have the right way of dealing with the serpent and of course the gazelle as well. I just wanted to mention it because I didn't realize that specifically this passage was something that I think Nathan of Gaza, not just the Zohar, but also this passage that you just read, must have been in the back of his mind. So thank you very much.
100%, 100%. Very much, he's inspired in that sense by the Tikkunei Zohar. I mean, I don't know if I've said it in this particular course, but another one, Lahavdil, who is very influenced by Tikkunei Zohar's understanding of the Redeemer to be Moshe is Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, 100%. When he talks about Mashiach or whatever, it's Moshe. And, again, the academics, they like to get into, does Rabbi Nachman think he's Mashiach? Does he see himself as Mashiach? And they sort of say yes, but what needs to be said very clearly is that Rabbi Nachman, if he sees himself as Mashiach in any way, it's the Mashiach of Tikkunei Zohar, it's Moshe. He sees himself as Moshe of his time, and there's Moshe in each and every generation in Tikkunei Zohar. In Natan, he goes full blast, obviously, for Mashiach, and he wants Shabtai Tzvi to be that. But,
and he's close in time-wise. He's very close to the Tikkunim. It's 100 years later.
Right.
So it's closer than Rabbi Nachman.
Yes, but Rabbi Nachman was very, very fond of the Tikkunim. He said something like, Zohar is nice, but the Tikkunim is the real stuff. So he was aware of his connection to the Tikkunim totally. You find it, by the way, if I'm not mistaken, by other Shabtaim also, that they're very into Tikkunei Zohar for different reasons. Okay, we'll just do two more because I'd like to get, we're talking about snakes. Well, I should say something. I want to say something else because of what Rachel said, but I'll hold back for a bit. Rona?
Sorry, I think Hannah was first.
Oh, okay, Hannah, right. It's not showing me her name. Thank you, Rona. That was gracious of you. Hannah.
On another note, may I share a song I wrote in Malila's class on the Hamaskilim?
V'hamaskilim. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Please. Please.
So it's from Daniel 12:3. V'hamaskilim yazhiru kazohar, 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 harakia v'hamaskilim yazhiru kazohar, 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 harakia umatzdikei harabim kakochavim leolam vaed umatzdikei harabim kakochavim leolam vaed.
Wow, thank you, Chana. That was beautiful. You know, as you were singing, I was thinking to myself, what you did, this might be, another way of what he was talking about writing. You were singing Zohar. You were literally singing Zohar. So I think you were like fulfilling entirely what he said here, what he asked for. Okay, Rona, if you can still speak after that, so we'll conclude with you.
It was beautiful, Hannah.
You should sing it, Rona. Sing it.
You don't want to hear me sing it. Please, not my voice, really. Yeah, I just wanted to say that, I take, in terms of a broader message, I take, from a modern point of view, contemporary point of view, it's on each of us to develop Zohar Torah in our own way and to extend it, to display it, to express it. And so I think that there is a challenge implicit in what we're studying.
Totally. That's exactly what he's doing. That's why he's writing this, is to challenge us to do this. And as you were talking, I saw that on my chat, it jumped up from Abraham said that there are people who are also doing Zohar visual art. So although he mentioned speaking and writing, I don't think we should limit ourselves to that. I mean, I don't think he means either. There are many, many ways one can do Zohar, So yes, and I think that's what one of his strongest appeals, or most powerful appeals to the Jewish people, the people who are studying Torah, is that he wants their Torah learning to be about Zohar, to be about Kabbalah, to be about bringing out the deeper inner meanings of it. And so I'm going to do just one couple lines to end this particular piece, which I think sort of sums it up or brings it together. So he's talking. This is all sort of based on the expression halacha leMoshe miSinai. There's all sorts of things that we do in Judaism that are not written explicitly in the Torah, but they're considered halacha leMoshe miSinai, that there was, along with the written transmission to Moshe on Sinai, there was also an oral transmission, and it wasn't written down, but it was also given to Moshe on Sinai. And that's called halacha leMoshe miSinai. The halacha to Moshe from Sinai. And of course, you know that the word halacha comes from the Hebrew word halicha, which means going. And a lot of people have said a lot of things about why halacha, the word for Jewish jurisprudence, is halacha, the same word as walking or going. But here's the Tikkunim's take on that. Ihi, she is the halacha de Malka. She is the halacha of the king. When is she the halacha of the king? When is she basically walking to the king? Kad ihi azlat gabe betrein shokin. When she's walking to him with her two hips. Di'inun trei samchik shot, who are the two pillars of truth. So on her way, walking towards her beloved, she's called halacha. V'chad selikat begufa, betrain droin demalka, but when she comes to his body, when she meets, body to body, and she ascends into his body with the two arms of the king, then it kriyat Kabbalah. Then she's called Kabbalah. Because halacha, this is just such a brilliant image. So halacha, the law, is about her walking towards the king, towards her beloved. When they finally embrace, when he receives her, that is called Kabbalah. And when she kisses him on the mouth, it kriyat oraita de Baal Peh. Then she is called the oral Torah. Bahu Simna Desalka Lefuma Demalka, at the time when she rises into the king's mouth, Miyad Yitkayim Beraya Mehimna, then at that moment, the verse is fulfilled with Moshe, with the faithful shepherd, Peh el Peh Adaberbo. I spoke with Moshe. God tells Aaron and Miriam, I speak with Moshe mouth to mouth. So that's when because who is kissing her? Who is her beloved? It's Moshe. Okay? So halacha le Moshe misinai, is when she's walking towards Moshe. Kabbalah le Moshe misinai is when he receives her in his arms. Torah shebal peh is when they're kissing. Okay? And here you see an example for him of how he makes all of Torah related to the Shekhinah, how he reinterprets Torah, all sorts of Torah categories in Shekhinah terms, okay? Kad kamat, and then he does a little bit a different take. Kad kamat al raglaha begaluta batraha, when she rises on her feet in the last exile, it kariyat halacha l'Moshe misinai. Because what he's saying is the Shekhinah, I won't get into it too much here, but her legs have been injured from the galut, from exile, from walking around in this galut so long that her legs are weary. So when she can really stand on her feet in the final redemption, that's when she's called halacha, the Moshe Sinai, that she's now capable of walking. She's now capable of going. That's halacha. The chadsharya bidroi demalka, and when she's in the arms of the king, like before, it kariyat Kabbalah le Moshe Sinai. She's called Kabbalah. The chadsharya befuma demalka, miyad peh peh, same thing, mouth to mouth. That's okay. But then he finishes by saying, when she's walking in the opposite direction of Moshe and not towards him, Shechinta ihi rivla Adonai letata. When she's walking away from him, then instead of being Rabbi, we saw this before, Rabbi is Riv. Then she's fighting with God. Okay? Kabbalah, she's fighting with God below. And when she's not held in his arms, when she's not received in his arms, ihi riv le'ela, then she's fighting with God above. And we saw something similar to this, so I'm not going to get into it now, but here we see basically, first of all, his preference for Kabbalah, although there's something beyond Kabbalah, which is when they're actually physically intermingling by kissing, but he sees it's just an incredible image because he's talking so much about the revolution in the Torah that he wants it to be, and so his description of the halacha as that's how she walks towards Moshe, or that's how she gets her ability to walk. But the Kabbalah is when they actually embrace. Okay, so we just finished the third file here, and I'm just, with your kind permission, I want to begin the next one because it's going to definitely take us a bit of time to get through it. So let's just at least start it this week, and I'll leave a little time at the end for some more talk. Now, in your file, which I sent you, I brought a lot of different quotes from the Torah because it's dealing with a lot of different a lot of different passages in the Torah. I didn't get a chance to translate them. I think what I'll do is write you where they are, and everyone could look it up in their English Bible instead of me having to pull it out of AI or wherever. And I'll just refer to them when we need it, okay? But the main verse that we need to know is to begin with, is from Mishlei, Proverbs, the 30th chapter, verse 18. So he says, Shlosha hema nifleu mimeni. There are three things that are just beyond me. Va'arba'a lo yadatim. And a four that I really don't know at all. What are these 3 or 4 things? 1, derech hanesher bashamayim, the way of the eagle in the heavens. Derech nachash alei tzur, the way of a serpent, of a snake on the rock. Derech oniyah belev yam, the way of the ship in the heart of the sea. V'derech gever ba'alma, and the way of a man with a woman. Okay? These are the 4 things that he says, you know what? I don't understand. I have no clue. And so this piece, which we're going to be learning next, is not from Tikkunei Zohar literature. It's from what's called Midrash HaNe'elam, the hidden Midrash. Most parts of it are published with the Zohar Bereshit mainly, the first volume of the Zohar. There are academics who believe, those who date the Zohar to the 13th century, who think that Midrash HaNe'elam might be much earlier. This is a section from Midrash HaNe'elam that appears in what's called Zohar Chadash. To any of you that means something, fine. If not, not important. It's just a source where I got it from. Different language, different style than Tikkunei Zohar, but definitely doing Zohar. Okay, so I'm going to go directly to it, and we'll refer to the necessary Torah passages. And I see already I have to do the first one, which is from Exodus Tet Zayin 16. So did I even bring that one here? No, it should be 17. It's not 16, 17. I'll fix that. So, okay, so this is right. Let me see. Yeah, okay, so this is what happened. I'm just going to read it and translate it. You know what? I'm even just going to translate it to save time. Those of you who follow the Hebrew, read it in Hebrew. I'm going to do it in English. So the entire congregation of the children of Israel traveled through the Sinai desert on their travels according to God, and they camped in Rephidim, and there was no water for the people to drink. So the people started fighting with Moshe and said to him, "Give us water to drink." And Moshe said to them, "What are you fighting with me? What are you testing God?" And the people were thirsty for water, and the people started complaining about Moshe and said, "Why did you take us out of Egypt? To kill me and my children and my cattle with thirst." And Moshe cried to God, saying, "What am I going to do with this people? A little bit more and they're going to stone me." So God says to Moshe, "Go before the people, take with you some of the elders of Israel, and the staff that you smote the Nile with, take in your hand and go. And I'm going to be standing there by the rock in Chorev and hit the rock, and then many water will come out of the rock. And the people will drink." And Moshe did before the eyes of the elders of Israel. And that okay, I don't need to read the last verse here. So Moshe is told in this case, Moshe is told to smite, to hit the rock with his staff, which is the staff that he had used at the Reed Sea. Okay? So that's what we need to know. I hope that's enough what we need to know to be able to read the beginning here. So he's quoting it, and it should be Yud Zayin. So, Umatcha sherikita bo et hayor kach biadcha ve'alachta, the staff that you smote the Nile with, not the Reed Sea, the Nile, when he was doing the plagues, take in your hands and go. Tanya Amar Rabbi Yossi, we learned Rabbi Yossi said, Galif havechutra mitrein sitru. Moshe's staff, okay? It's a wooden staff. So it's engraved on 2 sides. Bishma Kadisha, with a holy name. Okay? Chad Sitra, one side of the staff, Derachame Vedina, Batwan Gelifin. It's Bishma, it's both compassion and judgment together, engraved in letters. Okay? So one side, there is some name of God. We don't really know exactly what. I have some ideas, but we don't really know from this text what name exactly it might be. So on one side, we have this name of God, and on the other side, the Chad Star, and that's called compassion and judgment. And on the other side, Dina Bedina, judgment with judgment. Nachash Alitzur, the snake on the rock. Okay, remember it said one of the ways that he doesn't know is the way of the snake on the rock, the snake on the stone. So here his image is the snake on the stone, that is Dina Bedina, judgment and judgment, because the Nachash, the snake, is Din, and also the rock is Din, the hard rock. So it's also like harsh. So it's judgment, Dina Bedina. So he has, apparently, on his staff, on one side, some name of God, which is compassion and judgment together, Rachamim and Din, and on the other side of his staff is the snake, Dina Bedina, judgment and judgment, the snake on a stone, okay? Tachazeh, it says, come and see, Tiv, it says, and this is in the Reed Sea, the crossing of the Reed Sea, Ve'ata haremet matcha uneteet yadcha alayam. It says, lift up your staff and stretch out your hand alayam, over the sea. My unete, what does this mean? Stretch out your hand. It also in Hebrew, the word unete means like turn. So why does it say turn your hand over the sea? Kilomar, meaning to say, unetie, turn bechad gisa, turn it to one side, okay? De galifa berachame vedina, that was engraved with compassion and judgment. In other words, as we said, Moshe's staff had two sides, one with the name of judgment and compassion, and the other side with the snake on the rock. So when he says, Neteet yadcha, turn your hand, he's telling him over the Reed Sea, I want that divine name. I want the divine name, which is an expression of compassion and judgment. Uchtiv, and it's written, Vayet Moshe et yado. Moshe turned his hand. Velokti vayishlach et yado. And it doesn't say stretched, he stretched his hand. Kilomar, meaning to say, Aste mechadisa. He turned from one side. He showed one side of his staff. Okay, so we see there he used that side. V'itema. And if you see, if you say, the galif hava mikadmet dena nachash alitzur, if you say that Moshe's staff, when he got it, whenever it was, I don't remember if God gave him his staff or where he got it from, but when he got to the department store, I don't know. But when he got his staff, it's not as if he already got it with the snake. If you think that he had the snake on the stone on his staff beforehand, no. Ela bisna id galif. He received that after the burning bush. Dichtiv, as it says. So let us see that also. Let's see it here. I'm sure I put this. Yes. So this is Moshe's whole discussion with God after he meets him in the burning bush, and God is trying to get Moshe to go to Egypt to redeem the people. Vayan Moshe vayomer. So Moshe says, Vehen lo yaminu li v'lo yishmu b'koli. They're not going to believe me. They're not going to listen to me. Ki yomru lo nirei lecha Adonai, because they'll say God did not appear to you. Vayomer elav Adonai maze biyadecha. God says to Moshe, what do you have in your hand? Vayomer mateh. And he says the staff. Vayomer, God says, Hashlichehu artza. God says, throw the staff on the ground. Vayashlichehu artza vayhi lenachash. And he throws it on the ground and it becomes a snake. Vayanos Moshe mipanav, and Moshe ran away from it, okay? And then he tells him, grab it by its tail, and it will become a staff again. So, this is amazing. Tikkunei Zohar is Midrash HaNe'elam is saying here that when did the staff receive or become, or one of its sides become the snake on the stone? That happened when Moshe threw his staff on the ground and it became a snake. It literally became a snake. That's exactly what happened. The staff became a snake. It didn't come to Moshe when, as I said, when he bought it in the department store, it didn't come with being a snake. Maybe it came with the divine name and compassion and justice, but it became a snake when he threw his staff on the ground, and then it became a snake. So let's go back to the Midrash HaNe'elam, how it says it here. Okay. Ella, Bahishata, okay. At that time, Itgalif Nachash Aletzur. The stone, the snake and the stone was engraved on his staff. The Ta Chaze, come and see. Okay? So we'll do a little bit more. And we'll do a little bit more here because we're close to the end, so I'll just do this and then we'll pick it up next week. V'tachazeh, come and see. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said, Ba'akut shabrichu dishmoi, dahavagilifin bechutra ya'averatwan. God, the Holy One, blessed be, wanted that his name that was engraved on the staff should do miracles, should do signs. Vitanya, Trei atin itavidu biyama. There were two signs on the sea. Bahu star desata Moshe barach mevedina. That side, Moshe, he put the side of his staff that was compassion and judgment. Baza yama Yisrael biyud beit shvilin. He broke the sea for Israel into 12 paths. That was the compassion. Vativ bedina al Mitzrayim v'at balon b'toma, and the judgment was on the Egyptians who drowned in the depths. God caused the waters of the sea to fall on them. Okay. Bahishata, but later on. Baila fakamayim. He had to. Okay, that's what happened at the crossing of the Reed Sea. But later on, when he had to take water out of the rock, Amar kutshabrichu. So the Holy One, blessed be He, sent to him, Moshe, aster chutra megisa achara. Now turn your staff from that other side, the trena toanita virube, that had done the two signs of saving Israel and drowning the Egyptians. Kama di'itavid misitra achra. Now you have to do it from its other side. You're now going to have to use the other side of your stick. One part will be using, it's a snake. Remember that it's a snake on a stone. So he's saying, one, you're going to use now, which is the stone part, and then Meriva, where God tells him to speak to the stone, that's going to be the snake part, and we'll talk about it more next week. But he's saying, okay, you used your staff in the Red Sea, you used the side that had the holy name with compassion and judgment. Now, when they're asking for water the first time, you're going to have to use the snake side. Okay, and here, the first time they're asking for water, when God tells them to hit the stone, so then he's telling him to use the snake on the stone side, specifically the stone part of it. Aval hashta, now here vihikita batsur, hit the rock. My tsur, what is the rock? Bahai tsur de salik nachash. That is the rock that the snake is going to go on. Okay? So I'm going to stop here, but I'll just say, like as a sort of teaser or a preview for next week. So Again, I said it before. So here, when God tells him to hit the stone with his staff, so he's talking about the stone part of what's engraved on his staff. When they come to Merivah, when again the people were complaining that they didn't have water, and God tells them to speak to the stone, that is when he's supposed to use the snake part. And basically, for those of you who have read Harry Potter, so basically what it's going to be about is that Moshe was to have learned snake language. He had to learn how to speak like a snake, and that's where he failed. Okay, but that we're going to talk about more next time. Okay, so does anybody want to ask or say something before we depart? Eliezer.
Hi, Avram. Thank you. I just had a quick question. What are the two pillars of truth? I didn't quite get that.
I tried to skip over it fast. Yeah. So it's a reference to the two sfirot, Netzach and Hod. And they're called two pillars because, you know, the thighs, they're sort of like pillars of the body because, you know, all the sfirot are really bodily to start with. So it's Netzach and Hod are the two pillars, and they were also, you know, at the entrance to the Beit HaMikdash, to the Holy Temple. So there was two big pillars there. Yachin and Boaz, and for the Kabbalists, they're also Netzach and Hod, the two thighs, and they're called Samchik Shod, meaning pillars of truth, in that you can rely on them to walk.
Thank you. Great.
Okay?
Appreciate that.
Chana.
Sorry. So this is very basic. In the last piece of Tikkunei Zohar we did from last week, the third package, and it opens Ihi Halcha de Malka. I don't understand what the Malka is there if Moshe is going to be the is the Shekhinah bringing something of the Kadosh Baruch Hu in her halacha, or what is the Malka?
You got it right. The Malka, the king, is Moshe. She is the queen and he is the king. So
they use Malka not just for Kadosh Baruch Hu, but actually for her sort of lower
for Moshe. For Moshe.
Okay.
In Tikkunei Zohar, he doesn't so much use Kadosh Baruch Hu like in the Zohar. His favorite term for it is Amud Adem the middle pillar, which is like the spinal cord, basically. But if you know, like Sfirot, it's like Tiferet. It's the same idea as Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's the king. But for him, what we would call in Zohar Kabbalah Tiferet or Kadosh Baruch Hu is for Tikkunei Zohar. It doesn't stay an abstract Sfirah. He personalizes it, and he goes more an archetype. And Moshe is that. So Moshe becomes the Shekhinah's beloved because of all of the above. Okay. Anyone else before we go?
Mazel tov on making it through the class without any sirens.
Yeah. And may that continue also to times when it's not a class. So I'll see you again. I'll see everyone again next week, I hope. And, you know, we should have good tidings between then and now and at all times.
Is next week the last class, Avram?
Yes, next week is the last class of this series. Okay. Thank you so much, Rabbi Meira. Good night to everyone, or good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.